my name is Gordon Inch. I have come over from Linn from Glasgow in Scotland. And before we begin, there is a very important thing I have to do.
Selfie.
So today we are going to walk through the assembly of a Linn Sondek LP12 turntable. This particular version will be a Klimax LP12, so a reference level. Does anyone know what the Linn logo actually is?
Cartridge.
So close. Is actually this. This is the single point bearing. When the LP12 was designed, the only part that had a patent was this part, the bearing. The tip here is the logo. So this was the original bearing in 1973. Quite basic. It allowed the bearing to mate with the subchassis, the suspended part, and rotate very quietly. It was replaced in 1993 with this bearing, the Circus bearing. So you can see that Circus is an evolution of the original bearing. A little bit taller, and the mounting shoulder is deeper and stiffer. The Circus bearing was replaced in 2020 with this, the Karousel bearing. Karousel is very different. So Karousel has a lock nut that clamps the bearing to the subchassis. The older bearings had 3 small screws. What we found was that when the bearings were clamped to the subchassis, this top part would flex very, very slightly. So the lock nut is designed to give a better clamp between the bearing and the subchassis, but also it supports the top half of the bearing when it is locked in place. So the Karousel bearing, as an upgrade, is the single biggest audio jump for a customer with a Linn upgrade. If they do not have the Karousel, it would usually be the first upgrade that we would recommend. Right. So here on the table we have all of the components that will build into a Klimax LP12. Yeah. Each of these individual components can be an upgrade for a customer who does not have one. So if we took that magic LP12 there and fitted all of these components, it would become a Klimax reference level turntable. Okay, so let's walk through the components we have. This is Klimax Radikal. This is the power supply and speed control for the DC motor and also for the phono stage called Urika. We have our DC motor that comes with the Radikal. We have Ekstatik, Linn's reference level moving coil cartridge. This is Ekos SE, Linn's reference level tone arm. This part is called Keel SE. It is the suspended platform that will hold the cartridge, the arm and cartridge, the bearing and the rotating platter assembly. So Keel SE is brand new. We just introduced at the end of last year. It is machined from a single piece of 5083 aluminium alloy. So this replaces the previous generation of Keel, which was also machined from a single piece. The difference is the underside. So the shape is quite unusual. We used something called finite element analysis software, very clever simulation software, to map where stress lines will happen in the subchassis. So what that ends up creating is something that mimics the human skeleton. Your bones have mass at the end of the bones where it helps, and then the bones get thinner in the middle. We have added material to the underside where it makes a difference, and where it does not make a difference, we have removed material. So this is 2 times the weight of the previous generation of Keel, and we have moved the center of gravity more towards the middle of the platter. The last component we will fit is Urika. Urika is available in 2 versions, Urika and Urika 2. They are our reference level phono stage, and it sits inside the turntable. If a customer wants to remain analog throughout the entire pathway, Urika is all analog. Urika 2 has an ADC and outputs a digital signal. So all of Linn's streaming preamplifiers, like Select DSM that you can see over here, have an RJ45 socket on the rear. So they will take a Cat6 cable to connect PhonoStage directly to Linn DSM. Okay, so now that we have explained each of the components here, we can start to get ready to build the deck. So the first thing that I will do is I will make sure that my jig is level. So I can take my plinth assembly, I'm going to put it in the jig. The first thing I'm going to do is prepare it for the build. So there's two things I'm going to do. One is remove this belt guide, and the second is make sure that my suspension springs are vertical. So the belt guide is only used on Magic LP12. On Select, our mid-range, and here on Klimax, our flagship, the belt guide is removed. We're going to start the build with the deck upside down. So we can start by preparing our sub-chassis. So I can get together the series of components needed for the suspension. There are 3 springs, there are 3 large rubber mountings, and then there are 3 small rubber mountings. There are also 3 nuts and 3 washers. Special nut, a washer. So each spring tower will consist of one of each of these. Right. The large rubber mounting I'm going to fit to the sub-chassis. So next I can prepare my carousel bearing. So Karousel is manufactured and produced in-house in our factory. We have a series of 5-axis CNC machines, special machines that will create one of these every 14 minutes. The carousel bearing will fit from the underside. Our carousel bearing is into our sub-chassis, and our sub-chassis is now ready to fit to the turntable. But there's a few other things that we're going to do first. First, we're going to fit the DC motor. So at Magic level, behind you, and at Select level, or mid-range, we use an AC motor. And at Klimax level, we use a DC motor. AC motors are more stable than DC motors, and they produce less noise than a DC motor. DC motors put out less magnetic interference. That's why we use them at Klimax level. The motor has one flat edge. The edge will match the flat edge of the sub-chassis. I can lock my motor in place. So now I can fit my on-off switch. So the on-off switch has an input for the power cable, and I just want to make sure that the cable is out of the way as much as possible. Okay, so now that my motor and my switch are fitted, I can get ready to fit my sub-chassis. I will insert carefully. The bottom mounting, it is very important that it is inserted properly, flat and fully into the spring. Once this deck is complete and we bounce the deck, some people hear a knocking noise. That knocking noise can actually be this rubber rubbing against the spring. I also want to make sure that the hole in my washer and the hole in the rubber mounting are perfectly aligned. If they are offset, you can get resistance to movement. This one at the rear will carry the most amount of weight, so this one will have far more screw thread showing. So the next component we can fit is cross brace, or wiring strap it's called in Linn world, this piece. So the cross brace is held in place with 4 wood screws. So the next thing I'm going to fit is a grounding cable that we use at this level. So this is our grounding cable. It has a big end and a small end. Before I fit this, there is a second cable that we will fit. So this cable also will fit over. So 2 grounding cables. So I will clamp them together. This is for static grounding. I want to bend it so that the cable is not touching anything. So now I have done as much as I can do with the deck this way up. The next thing I need to do is to change the orientation. Next we can fit our optical sensor. Next thing we can do is we can fill the bearing with oil. So the Linn oil is black in colour. We're going to fill directly into the bearing. So now I can insert my platter. The next thing we will fit is the drive belt. Drive belts do not get changed usually during a service. They last approximately 10 years. In hotter, more humid climates, they deteriorate quicker because they are made of natural rubber. I'm going to look at the shape, then turn inside out. So this way is more teardrop. Yeah. This way is flatter. I want flat.
You want flat?
I do not want a pear, I want a cucumber. Now we can prepare our outer platter. There is one very important thing that people forget. The speed sensor is an infrared beam reflecting. It needs something to trigger, and that is what this black decal is for. So I can see that my sub-chassis is very low here in relation to the plinth, so I'm going to lift it. So now we can prepare our tone arm. I will prepare my cartridge, my Ekstatik. The Ekstatik cartridge is very easy to damage. There are incredibly fine wires running down the side of the cartridge body. So if you hold by the side, you can break this cartridge and not even realize it. So we would recommend holding the cartridge using the stylus guard. Ekos SE is a combination of stainless steel bearings, aluminium housing, aluminium head shell, and a titanium arm tube. Each one of these, they're made in batches of 6. It takes 3 days to make 6 of them. There are 3 settings: the tracking force at this end, height of the arm, and the anti-skate bias. So the tracking force can be set by a dial. Now I know that my tracking force is 2 grams for this cartridge. I'm going to set it to 2 grams and then fine-tune using the counterweight. 1.98.
Oh man.
It's okay, it's okay. Next thing I'm going to do is adjust the height of the arm. So what I'm looking for is when the stylus is on the record, I want the arm tube to be parallel with the record surface. I'm making sure that when I clamp the arm, it is in line with the Linn logo that is in the middle of the arm board. So I'm happy now. So the last setting is the anti-skate. We would recommend starting at 2 and then use your ears. Then I would try maybe 3 and listen, maybe try 1 and listen, and determine which way you think the sound is best. If I turn the anti-skate to maximum, I might feel that the sound is moving out of stereo and more towards one speaker. The same might be true if we go the other way, so we want to be in the middle. Okay, so now that we have set up our arm, the next thing we come to is the bounce of the turntable. So the first part of the process is alignment. I'm looking at the gap all the way around my arm board, and I want it to be equal. So the way that we check the bounce is by tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Put some energy in, and I've got a wave going like this. So the way that we deal with that wave is by adjusting the springs. So I'm holding the spring and the rubber mounting, and I'm going to rotate, press up and release, and then I'm going to recheck the bounce. So what I want is I want the deck like this, not like this and not like this. So now that we have got to a point where we have vertical motion, the top side of the deck is effectively complete. The next thing we need to fit is the Urika phono stage. So the Urika comes with a series of anti-vibration strips. These will fit around the outside of the phono stage. Because this is Urika 1, it's all analog, so we can see our phono outputs. Urika has its own tone arm cable. It will only fit one way. A Klimax deck is pretty easy to build. Most of the components, the clever stuff, is here inside the Radikal power supply. A Magic LP12 arrives in your store sub-assembled. Select the mid-level is the slightly tricky one. One of the cool things that Radikal can do is there's a button on the rear. When you switch that button on, the start-stop button changes function. It switches the unit on, it changes speed, but you can also carry out a mute function like this. So I can still hear a little bit of the music. I could find track 3, for example, and then press the start-stop button again. So this makes demonstrations a little bit easier. So the LED at the power switch, red is 33, green is 45. When you first start the turntable, it will be bright, and after maybe 20 seconds it will go dull. That tells you that the turntable has calibrated itself. The speed sensor is so accurate that when you drop the stylus on the vinyl, sometimes the light will go bright for just a second because it can register the drag of the diamond in the groove. Remember, building a Klimax deck is showing you how to fit each component as an upgrade. Each component that I installed in the deck is a very popular upgrade.